Is it going to work? Regulators uncertain on schedule of the first UK launch. In today's day, very rarely do space ventures take place without any kind of partnership. Partnerships between multiple companies are the true essence of spaceflight. A lot of factors account into this, with the first one being the cost of the flight. Going into space isn't cheap, and that is why these companies partner up with each other, which also helps split the bill. Another reason for it is that these ventures help improve the space sector overall. Two such companies in the United Kingdom are coming together to make progress in launching their spaceflight venture. Before we go any further, hit that subscribe button if you want more content like this, and click the bell icon too so that you are notified of our every video. Plans for orbit. The two companies involved are Spaceport, Cornwall, and Virgin Orbit. Plans for the first orbital launch this year from the United Kingdom are well and truly moving forward. The reason it has been stalled so far is because there is uncertainty surrounding grant licenses because regulators haven't fully granted them for this flight. The problem hopes to be cleared up soon because the flight won't be cleared to move forward if the necessary permits aren't given to the companies. It'll be difficult to make any sort of exceptions because spaceflight is something that needs to have all the necessary protocols in place. Virgin Orbit has high hopes for this year because it intends to carry out 2 launches of its Launcher 1 air launch system this year in flights, which is why they expect this coming summer to be a busy one. The takeoff will take place at the Cornwall Airport, Newquay, which is also known as Spaceport Cornwall in southwestern England. Dan Hart, the chief executive of Virgin Orbit, said in a call with reporters on January 11th that the Cornwall launches are targeted around the middle of the year, summertime. This will be 2 days before its Above the Clouds launch from Mojave Air and Spaceport in California. The chief operating officer of Virgin Orbit, Tony Gingiss, talked about the specific spaceflight taking place after the Above the Clouds flight on the same call, so people in the United Kingdom can be hopeful that they'll get to see multiple spaceflights this year. Hart also said that the major factor that set out their schedule is licensing. As long as licenses are granted, then there should be no problem in carrying this plan forward. That's predicted on getting through the licensing process specifically and some of the other logistics. But that is what we are driving for, he said. The thing to be proud about for the United Kingdom will be that this is going to be the first ever launch that will take place from UK soil. It is going to be a great feeling for the entire country, particularly for the astronauts involved, because UK's entry into the space game has been a long time coming. It won't be wrong to say that after this mission, they will have truly arrived in the space game. I'll bet they're still a few years behind NASA, but they certainly do have the manpower as well as the resources to compete. Both Virgin Orbit and Spaceport Cornwall is going to require licenses from the United Kingdom's Civil Aviation Authority, the CAA. And that is the major blockage that these two companies are facing so far in this mission. That's not the last permit that Virgin Orbit needs. It'll also need a license to launch from the United States Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA. As well as we can just be hopeful that these two institutions grant the permission for the space mission to be taken forward. A presentation on 10th January took place at the Global Spaceport Alliance, where Melissa Thorpe, the head of Spaceport Cornwall, said that the spaceport was already cooperating with British regulators in terms of the license, and she expects it to be granted anytime soon. We are moving forward to launch in less than 6 months, she said. Our applications for launch as a spaceport is in to the CAA, as is Virgin's Orbit. Delays would be difficult to see as they will set the spaceflight a few months further than just 6. As the launch time increases, so will the costs involved. This application has submitted in October, and Thorpe said that we're just working through the feedback on that. Although a schedule for the license wasn't given, but it was said that this will be hopefully the first spaceport license to come out of the UK. With the company being this confident on getting their license, we can only hope that their confidence pays off. It won't be just progress for the United Kingdom, but spaceflights are something which the entire globe is appreciative of. CAA officials testify that on January 12th, hearing by the United Kingdom House of Commons Science and Technology Committee, it did not offer any surety for the license of Spaceport Cornwall or any other launch site in the country for that matter. Director of Strategy and Policy for the CAA, Tim Johnson, declined on repeated instances whether his agency expected the first spaceflight of this year in the United Kingdom. He also added that there were 4 applications that had been formally submitted, with 12 others that were already in a pre-application review. When processing would move forward, then these applications would be reviewed and then approved accordingly. You are set up. You've had these applications. Do you expect a launch in 2022? To which Johnson replied with, "We are open for business. We are processing the application. The key driver for the timetable will be the quality of the applications, the evidence presented." This statement practically confirms that things were in a pipeline and Johnson was not getting ahead of himself and revealing things before they even happened. This is the sign of a well-administered institution. A reporter asked, curiously, whether or not Johnson could give a simple yes or no on whether the spaceflight would be carried out or not, to which Johnson again declined and added, "The CAA understands the importance of timelines in this regard, and we're doing absolutely everything we can to achieve that." With Johnson sticking to his word and keeping things under the curtain, it'll be appreciated by many because he has agreed and he has been there with problems or delays in the launch. Then it would be a bitter pill to swallow for Johnson himself. Head of Space Regulation at CAA, Colin MacLeod, said that he expected it to take 6 to 12 months in order to issue a spaceport license and 9 to 8 months for a launch license. The biggest factors in that timescale are how well the applicants can explain their safety to us, he said. They are the experts, they know the technology, and the whole point of our approach is to enable innovative space activity to take place. So they are the biggest determinants in how quickly we can move. The safety concern is probably the biggest concern out there, which is why it is being prioritized so much. Spaceport Cornwall itself is probably one of the best sites that could have been chosen for this launch, but that doesn't make the license obtaining process any easier. Concerns were received from the committee that the CAA would struggle to evaluate several spaceport licenses at the same time. Johnson also added that the CAA has 35 people that were working on the spaceport and launch licensing together. "We've got space expertise and regulation expertise and policy expertise, but we've got a degree of flexibility, so we can reallocate and readjust the team depending on the phasing of the applications that we get." Another important thing that was pointed out was that there is one person on this team from the FAA as well. "We've got an FAA secondee into our space regulation team, so we can learn from some of what they do," he said. "Where there are things we can learn from each other, we do that. As long as assistance is being provided to the British, then what's the harm, right?" As discussed earlier, if a spaceflight mission succeeds, then it benefits all the parties that are involved. So if this spaceflight does go forward, then it is certainly a win for the FAA, as well, even if they have just one member from their side involved. MacLeod also stressed that the need for a bigger factor playing in might be the readiness of the spaceports and the launch providers. Applicants tend to take longer than they think to complete the application, and that's why we're putting in extra support where we can help them through those most difficult stages. As soon as the regulations are cleared, this spaceflight will soon be taking off. Before that, it's hoped that there are going to be less inconveniences as possible, because if the spaceflight is delayed, then there will be a lot of question marks over the credibility of Virgin Orbit.